Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to the last day of Shadows Over Innistrad spoilers. So tomorrow the full set will be revealed, and we'll be back tomorrow with another video as we begin our full set review. Tomorrow we'll look at all the white cards in the set, and then the next day we'll look at all the blue, so on and so forth. The final day, we'll do a pre-release primer, and by that point, it'll be almost time for the pre-release. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, definitely a great time to do so. We have a lot of good content coming up this week. So, having said that, well, let's see what's new over the last 24 hours in the world of Shadows Over Innistrad. We actually got not one, but two green mythics, so we'll look at those, as well as a number of other cards. Now, the first two cards we have to look at were cards that were actually previously leaked a number of weeks ago. So we talked about these in a previous video. I won't go into crazy detail since we've already spoke about them in length, but they're both just kind of decent limited cards that are good in a zombie limited build. And the first one is Lamplighter of Selhoff. You can see that on the screen. And the other one that was just confirmed is Stitched Mangler. So, like I said, these have both just been confirmed. They were leaked in the past, but now they are officially spoiled by Wizards. Okay, having said that, let's move on to the actual new stuff. First card is Humble the Bruit. 1 white, 4 generic. It's an instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Investigate. Okay, so basically Smite the Monstrous, but I'm paying 1 more and I get to investigate. Alright, yeah, that's fine and limited. The funny thing with Smite the Monstrous is it's not always great in your limited deck. It's a card that sometimes you board in. A lot of times I'll start with it in my main deck and then board it out. It just depends on what your opponent's playing. It was pretty good, I think, in the Battle for Zendikar block because you did have those large Eldrazi's and things. And I think this set has some large creatures, but I think you may have to worry about more of a small tribal component. So maybe this is a sideboard card in limited. Maybe you can main deck this one. I do like the Investigate, even though I am paying 1 more for it. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's just a limited card. You'll be happy it's there when you're up against a big creature. Next is Survive the Night. 1 white, 2 generic. It's an instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn and investigate. So, combat trick for limited, basically. Not a whole lot to say about this one. You're paying about 1 more for this than you probably normally would, but you get to investigate, and that's kind of what the last couple of cards we just looked at are doing. Obviously, it's not going to make it into standard or anything. This is just a good white combat trick in limited. Next we have Forgotten Creation. 1 blue, 3 generic, zombie horror, 3/3 with Skulk. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. Now notice it does say may. It's not forcing you to do this, so it's your choice. That's actually kind of awesome. So first off, let's talk about limited. 3/3 for 4. Okay, that's fine. It's borderline. But then you add Skulk on top of it. Makes it a little better. And then the ability makes this really great. So a couple things I can do with this in limited. Number 1, if I'm not happy with my hand at any time, I can just dump it and rejuvenate my hand. Draw some new cards. That's amazing. And if I'm playing with Madness, if I'm playing with Delirium, this becomes even better. So this is going to be a really strong limited card in a lot of decks. Still good if you're not playing with those mechanics, but if you're playing with those, this is a bomb. Now, standard, I think is good enough to see standard play. Just the fact that, again, it plays well with those mechanics and it can rejuvenate your hand is kind of crazy. Maybe this is a card that could be used in a control deck. This is very interesting, has some amazing applications. Again, modern, I think it can be played there. And legacy, I don't know, maybe a tad expensive, but the reason I'm even thinking about legacy and modern play is just because that ability is so strong and you can do a lot more kind of crazy hijinks with this ability in those formats by dumping a lot of stuff in your graveyard, a lot of reanimation strategies, stuff like that. So let me know in the comments below some of your thoughts on this card and what kind of brews you're thinking about with this, because I think someone's going to come up with something really amazing for this card at some point. And I haven't even touched on the fact that this is still a good commander card, it's still a good cube card. This is going to see tons of play in a lot of formats. Next is Stitchwing Scab. 1 blue, 3 generic, zombie horror, 3/1 with flying. And if you pay a blue and 1, discard 2 cards, return this from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's a little too pricey to fit into like the aggro builds that this almost feels like it wants to be in, but really those are going to be more black, red builds, not really including blue, and they're going to do this type of thing a lot cheaper. But if I'm just playing blue and limited, this is a fine card. I'm going to be happy to pay 4 for 3/1 flyer, and if I happen to use the ability to bring it back, wonderful. If not, that's still fine. Now, it's even better if I'm playing with Madness and Delirium abilities, so that's where this card will really shine in Limited. I don't really see it going beyond Limited, but it could be very good in the right decks there. Next, we have Uninvited Geist, which transforms into Unimpeded Trespasser. And this is a 2/2 spirit. It has Skulk, and when this deals damage to a player, transform, and it transforms into a 3/3 spirit that can't be blocked. This is pretty good in Limited. It's going to be at the uncommon spot. You're going to see a number of these going around in a draft, and it's decent. You don't like paying 3 for a 2/2, but it does have Skulk. I think that kind of makes up for it. And once you get the damage across, then this is just a beater, and your opponent's going to have to deal with it. They probably will find a way to deal with it, but they're going to lose a fair amount of health in the meantime. So I think it's good for Limited. Don't really see it going beyond that, but it's going to be great for you there. Creeping Dread. 1 black, 3 generic. It's an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player discards a card. Each opponent who discarded a card that shares a card type with the card you discarded loses 3 life. Players reveal the discarded cards simultaneously. Okay, so I probably don't have to say this, but this is probably a commander card. I don't really see it doing a whole lot in most formats, but this is kind of cool. It's one of those fun kind of kitchen table commander cards that you put this down, and everybody, when it's your upkeep, has to pick a card, put it face down, and everyone flips it over and sees who loses life and discards their cards. I think that's actually kind of fun. Now, beyond that, I can't think of much practical use for it, but again, there's nothing wrong with fun commander, fun kitchen table, casual cards, and this is one of them. From Under the Floorboards. 2 black, 3 generic. It's a sorcery and has a madness cost of 2 black and X. Put 3 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped, and you gain 3 life. If you paid the madness cost, instead put X of those tokens onto the battlefield tapped, and you gain X life. Okay, so here's the thing about this card. If you're discarding this for madness, you can actually play it when it's not your turn, even though it's a sorcery. So if you're able to discard this, let's say you have some cheap discard outlet on the board, and it's the end of your opponent's turn, you can discard this, you can pay the madness cost, gain a bunch of life, put down a bunch of tokens, untap, and attack with them. That's amazing. So this card's going to see standard play. I'm going to tell you right now, it's good enough to do it. And it might be kind of a high-end or even a mid-range card for the aggressive deck, perhaps, just by giving you, even if it's a few more zombies that you can just throw down on the board and attack in with, it might just be good enough there. And it also buys you some extra life, so that's going to really work well with Anguish Unmaking, because you know you're going to be wanting to cast Anguish Unmaking when you're in black or black-white, right? So this plays very well with that card. As far as Limited goes, it's going to be a bomb for you there too. I think that goes without saying. And this is going to be an amazing cube card and an amazing commander card as well. This one's a good one. Next card is Seasons Past. This is actually the first of 2 green mythics we have to look at today. This costs 2 green, 4 generic. It's a sorcery. Return any number of cards with different converted mana costs from your graveyard to your hand. Put Seasons Past on the bottom of its owner's library. So yeah, this is a commander card, and it's a cool one. I mean, obviously in that format, you're going to be playing a variety of different converted mana costs. You have more mana to play with, so you can play a wider variety of things. So you'll get some value out of this card. You might get a little value in Limited, even if you're just getting 2 or 3 cards back to your hand with this. That's actually pretty good. The only thing is you do have to look at what else is in your pool. Whenever you're looking at a card that costs 6, it's competing with maybe some other more powerful stuff, so that will be a consideration. But some decks will run this, and I think it will be fine for you in Limited in those cases. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of practical use for this. There are other decks out there that do use a variety of converted mana cost cards. Birthing Pod, before that was banned, used to be one that did that. But I just think it's a little too expensive, and there's a little too much variance for it to matter even in a deck like that. Ulvenwald Hydra, and this is our second green mythic, costs 2 green, 4 generic. It's a Hydra with reach. Its power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. When this enters the battlefield, you search your library for a land card and put it in the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So here's what kind of is painful about this card is it costs the same as Primeval Titan, and this is no Primeval Titan. So here's the upside. You do get to search for a land, not a basic land, but a land. That's pretty cool. And unlike Primetime, it's not just going to be a 6/6, it's going to be probably more than a 6/6 because it will be at least a 7/7 in most cases, right? So, okay, that's cool. But having reach instead of trample is really painful. And the fact that it also isn't going to do like Primeval Titan does and get you 2 more lands every time you attack, which would actually make this card maybe a little more interesting. It just kind of sits there and plays defense. Maybe goes in, gets chump blocked. It just doesn't have the evasion it needs to really be great like Primeval Titan was. So, I don't know. It's going to be great in Limited. You're still going to play it and be fine with it. And one thing I think we've seen with most of the Mythics in this set is they are a little bit situational. They seem to really be designed for one type of gameplay or another. A lot of them feel like just limited cards. Some of them feel like they're really tailor-made for Commander. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you don't necessarily want Jace Vern's Prodigies on your hands all the time, right? That a lot of different players want multiple copies of, and prices get driven up. So I'm okay with Mythics not being super splashy all the time, but I think it does feel a little disappointing sometimes when you open a Mythic and it's basically only good for Limited. So I don't know, we'll see what this card does, but I kind of feel like it's just going to be a good Limited card. Alright, last card of the day is Altered Ego. Costs a blue and a green, 2 generic, and X. It's a shapeshifter, 0/0, but it can't be countered. And you may have this enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional +1/+1 counters. This is basically a clone, but instead of paying a blue and 3 generic, you're paying a blue, green, and 2 generic, but it can't be countered, so okay. And you have the ability to spend extra mana to give it +1/+1 counters. It's an interesting card. I think it could be fun to play with. This will be great in Limited. You'll be happy to play this in your Limited game in most parts, especially late game when you can really make something a lot bigger with counters. And it's going to be cool in like Commander, where it really matters that you could potentially copy a very powerful card that's out on the battlefield. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, I could run it in a cube. I think it could be fun there, but I don't really see this really in constructed standard or modern or anything like that. But it's a fun card. I like when they do twists on kind of old stuff that we're familiar with, but change it up a little bit. So I think it's a cool design. All right, well, having said that, that's the end of Shadows Over Innistrad spoilers. So, like I said, tomorrow we're going to be back with all the white cards in the set. We'll talk about them in detail, and then we'll make our way part by part through the entire set, and hopefully get you ready for that pre-release. It'll be coming up a week from this weekend. So, until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.